BookTube, it is Mickey, and I am here with another set of mini reviews. Technically, this is my Underhyped Reads readathon wrap-up, because these are all books that I read during the Underhyped Reads readathon, which was like the first week of March, so this is really late. Yeah, I figured I'm participating in a genre-athon this week, and I felt kind of guilty posting a TBR for genre-athon when I hadn't actually done the wrap-up for the last readathon that I did, so that's what this is. So during the Underhyped Reads readathon, I completed 3 books during that time, and so I'm just going to do a quick review of those 3 books. So the first book that I finished during the Underhyped Reads readathon is Death of a Fool by Niall Marsh. So this one is a Niall Marsh mystery, as her detective is Detective Roderick Allen. Inspector Allen. And I think this is like number 19 in the series. It's set in this rural English town where these people participate in this folkloric traditional dance that has been passed down from like hundreds of years, from generation to generation. It involves sword dancing, and the murder occurs in full view of an audience. And yet none of the audience members actually saw the murder happen, though it had to have occurred on the stage. And the only people who are, all the main suspects, the only people who could have committed the murder are the people who are participating in the dance. So that's kind of the setup for the mystery. I enjoyed this, but at the same time, I kind of feel like this is sort of, this isn't Marsh at her best. This is Marsh kind of resting on her laurels a little bit. A lot of the characters felt kind of familiar to me. They felt like shadows of characters I've seen in books of hers before. So I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. If you are a fan of Niall Marsh and you've read her before, I definitely would suggest you read it because it was still an enjoyable read. But if you've never read her before, I would not start with this book. I would start with Night at the Vulcan. Because that one is a lot better, and I think it's a much better representation of what she can do when she's writing at her best. So that was Death of a Fool. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. The second book that I finished during the Underhyped Reads readathon was 40 Acres by Dwayne Alexander Smith. So this is a book where I'm not the type of person who likes to give out half stars, because usually when I give a book a half star, it's just because I'm refusing to make up my mind about it. But this is a book that I really do feel like it stuck somewhere between a 3.5 star and a 4-star read. On one hand, this is a thriller, and it did what a thriller does. Like, it kept me on the edge of my seat. I flew through the pages. I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next. It was really a entertaining experience reading the book. So on that, I give it a lot of points. But I thought that because of the subject matter of the book, I thought that it was going to have a lot more depth to it than it did, and I was a little bit disappointed by it. So 40 Acres is about a group of elite black men who go to a resort called 40 Acres where they get to be the masters of white slaves. And I don't know if it's because I had just finished reading Native Son around the time that I read this, but I was super fascinated by this idea of black people being so enraged and feeling so much guilt because of the suffering that they suffer racially every day, and then the suffering that their ancestors had to suffer so that they could be here in this country, how that could motivate you to feel violence and rage, and how you might actually feel like the only way that you can get that out of yourself is through violence, because there's a little bit of that in Native Son. And so I was really, really intrigued by the idea, and I felt like this book kind of sets itself up to explore it, but it just doesn't really go deep enough for me. I think part of the reason is because the only characters who express these sort of feelings are all characters that I found really unlikable. Our protagonist, Martin, is a very, very likable character. But the other men that he's kind of around are not so much. They're really misogynistic, a little bit materialistic. They're just not people I liked or people that I really identify with, to be quite honest. But I really liked Martin. And when Martin is kind of presented with this idea, because the leader of the 40 Acres, he says that he's helping black men get rid of black noise, which is basically kind of like what I just talked about before, this idea of the guilt and rage that has built up over the years because of all the racial injustices that they have suffered. He says that he's helping them release this black noise because he feels like this thing keeps black men from being able to reach their full potential or whatever. And I just really thought that was really intriguing. But when Martin hears about it, he immediately dismisses it. Like, he immediately, he doesn't have it. He doesn't say, he doesn't have this rage. He doesn't have these feelings. And so it kind of made the issue very black and white, when I thought that there was a lot of room for there to be a little bit of moral ambiguity. Like, I'm not suggesting that slavery in any way, shape, or form is right, but just the idea of exploring the psychology of people who feel this way. I thought this book was going to do that, and it didn't. And so, I don't know. I kind of don't know how to rate it because, I mean, it was entertaining and I enjoyed it, but I kind of just wish it had went into more depth than it did. I definitely suggest you read it if you are a fan of mystery thrillers, because at the end of the day, this book is just about a man saving a whole bunch of people from a group of psychopaths. That's pretty much really what it is about. There are racial issues and racial undertones to it that are talked about, but like, again, I kind of just really wanted more depth in that regard. So I don't know. It's hard for me to be able to say what it is. I definitely recommend it though if you are a person who likes mystery thrillers. And the last book that I read during the Underhyped Readathons that I was able to complete at least was Into the GoSlow by Bridget M. Davis. This book I absolutely loved. I flew through it. I thought that it was beautiful. It reminds me a lot of Americana, and I think the only reason why, and really I think it's mostly surface level things that reminds me of Americana, because in this book there is a half the book takes place in America, the other half takes place in Nigeria, though the difference is that we have an American going to Nigeria versus in Americana where it was a Nigerian coming to America. There's also the age range of the character is very similar to the age range of the characters in Americana, and so there was just like, I don't know, like similarities kept popping up in my head as I was reading it. But the vast majority of the book is set in the U.S. and it's set in Detroit, which is my hometown. And what I loved about this book is that it felt like it was set in Detroit. Like, it really, like, the sense of place was done very, very well in this book. I read a book last year, The Turner House, which I liked, and it was set in Detroit, but it just didn't feel like it was set in Detroit. Like, I felt like all the place names and street names and sort of things were right, but it just kind of lacked something that I could identify with. But it was in this book, and I really liked it. Angie is a young girl who pretty much her entire life has sort of been defined by her sister Ella. As a little girl, she really looked up to her sister Ella. Her sister was like this Pan-African activist who was just like really smart and beautiful, who whatever she did it full on. She just threw herself into whatever task that she decided to believe in. Anything that she attempted to do, like, she just put her all into it. And so Angie grows up very much admiring her sister Ella. But during Angie's teen years, her sister Ella develops an addiction to drugs. And so she spends most of her high school years worried about her sister and her sister's health as she is basically kind of destroyed and pulled apart by this addiction. And this book does a really good job of showing the way that drug addiction can have, the effects that it can have on a family. And that's also another subject that is really close to my heart because it's something that I've personally been through. So I really thought this book did a really good job of dealing with that. And then after her sister gets clean, around the time that she goes off to college, and so it looks like things are looking up for her, and then her sister is killed in Nigeria in a car accident. And so she spends her college years mourning her sister's death. So she's basically just spent her entire life kind of like in her sister's shadow. And so this book is about her kind of sort of trying to find her identity, trying to let her sister go and figure out who she is on her own without Ella's influence. And I just thought it was really well done. I really liked it. I like that it's also a good representation. If you want to see what like activism was like in the late 70s, early 80s, when it comes to like racial injustice and issues, like this does like a really good overview of it because her sister was involved in a lot of different types of activism, and like it was just a really, really great book, and I definitely recommend it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So you should definitely pick this up, especially if you liked Americana. If you liked Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, then you should pick this book up. So those were my 3 quick reviews of the books that I read during the Underhyped Readathon. If you read any of these books below, let me know. Especially if you read 40 Acres. I really like to know what you thought about that, if you've read it, and what your thoughts are. Let me know if you're thinking about picking up any of these books. Let me know any Underhyped reads you might have read during the readathon or recently. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.